Welcome to Just One Song. My name is Kurt Bemke, and in this program, we want to write one song in just under 45 minutes. But the song doesn't have to be good. It just has to exist. With me tonight is singer and songwriter Michael Arteaga. How are you doing tonight, Michael?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm kind of excited to get back into music. It's been a little while.
Why has it been a while?
I've kind of just neglected music. I've taken up some other hobbies and little things to keep me busy and entertained, and I feel like music has just been there. I can do it. It's available anytime, but I just haven't touched it.
Do you feel like you might take it for granted?
I'd probably say so. I mean, I've been doing music for more than half my life, and so I think I just know it's there and it's available. It's like food in the fridge. Like, it's there, it's available. You don't necessarily always go and eat it, only when you want some.
So you're saying there's other snacks out there aside from music?
Exactly, yeah. There you go. See? You catch my drift.
Well, so I know you as a pretty competent singer, songwriter, a pretty competent musician. We went to Cal Poly Pomona together, along with most of the guests on my show. And I've heard your work. I've heard you perform in showcases and a lot of the music you write, and you write absolutely phenomenal music, in my opinion. So I'm just wondering, how did you learn to write such great music? What's your story behind your position as a songwriter, I suppose?
I feel like it stretches. It's gone through its hills and valleys. I started music when I was really little. Like my parents, siblings, not musical at all, but my grandparents, or actually my grandpa on my dad's side, and a couple of my uncles were musicians, and which is actually how I stumbled across music, because my uncle had a garage and he stowed his keyboard in there. We shared that garage with him, so I ended up finding that keyboard all dusty and whatnot, took it out. I was in second grade and I didn't really have anything else to do, so I just started listening to soundtrack music from movies I liked and played them by ear. And then that carried over into junior high when I started getting a little more technical. Didn't take any lessons, but I just played by ear, and then I started listening to some bands that friends introduced me to, and I was just like, wow, this music is my type of music. It's not like my dad's classic rock or my mom's radio music. It's stuff that speaks to me and it relates to me. I want to write stuff like this. This is good stuff. I want to be able to write music that's meaningful, not just to me, but to other people that might listen to it. And so that kind of inspired me to become a songwriter and then start making my own music.
I think based on how I know you as a songwriter, I think you've hit the nail on the head. I think you seem to write music that is entirely true to you, and it is your sound. I think one of my favorite memories is seeing you perform at the showcase. And this was, I think, the first time I'd ever seen you perform, because I knew you played piano, but you were on stage and you were sitting at the piano and you were playing the song, and then all of a sudden everything stopped, and then you got up and you picked up a keytar of all instruments. And I'd never seen anyone play the keytar in person. It was always a kind of a joke instrument to me.
Ooh.
People make fun of the keytar, but just seeing you pick up the keytar was interesting at first, and then you completely blew me away with how you could play that thing. Do you still have your keytar?
I still have it. I will never get rid of that thing. It's at this point, it's like a family heirloom. It's going to stay in the family, even though it's not an acoustic guitar that you can just take and play by the campfire. It's like a novelty item.
An acoustic guitar. It is a novelty, I suppose. It's contextual. It definitely has to be in the right context.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I think it not everyone wants to play an instrument like that, and maybe not everyone can, but it's just, it matters about if that's what works for you, and maybe the genre of music that you're trying to play, or the style of music that you're trying to portray, or the like your own personal stage presence that you're trying to put into play. Like it just becomes a part of your act.
Well, it's a shame that it has such a, I don't want to call it a negative connotation, but it's a shame that it's viewed almost entirely as a novelty instrument, because it seems very versatile in what it can do.
It is. I agree. It does have a lot of potential. I wish it had a little bit more of a reputation, I guess. Not so much as just like 80s hair metal music, but that it's like a competent choice of instrument, especially when you're playing live, not just like studio recordings, but when you want to play live and on a stage, it's super versatile.
I mean, it's more portable than a keyboard. And
the main reason I got it in the first place was because I was in a band, and all my bandmates, like bassist, singer, guitarist, they could all jump and do scissor kicks, and I was stick behind the keyboard on a keyboard stand, like, I want to do that. And so then I was like, oh, guitar. And then I could start doing scissor kicks with them. So that was basically the reason why I got it.
Did it help you with your songwriting? Did it affect your songwriting in any way?
Ooh, I think in a way it did, because I know the first time I did Songwriter Showcase, I played a song that I like wrote a guitar solo for. Like I would never write a piano solo or a keyboard solo for music, but because I had that at my disposal, I was like, I want to feature this, and so I wrote something specifically for that. And then going forward, I found out different ways to use the guitar, like in live performances, whether they were my songs or other people's songs, and just not make it be a portable keyboard. I distinctly wanted it to be its own thing that people could appreciate on the music.
I know it definitely surprised me and other members of the audience, I'm sure. But then you played it. Your performance with the guitar was incredible, and I think it made me definitely take that instrument more seriously. And I mean, there's no reason you shouldn't, but you're right. It definitely just has a reputation as being part of 80s hair metal and hair rock or whatever it's associated with. So I appreciate that you took a unconventional instrument in Western rock music and made it a part of your process.
Yeah.
That was really cool. So you mentioned the Songwriter Showcase at Cal Poly Pomona. That was where I saw you play the guitar. And the Songwriter Showcase is, for our listeners, the showcase is a performance of student songwriters, and other students will produce a group of songwriters and turn their songs into bigger productions with full-scale bands.
Oh, I almost thought we did it one year. I didn't produce you. No, I was never in a group with you. Really?
I did it all.
Never?
I did it 3 years. I was only at Cal Poly for 3 years.
Oh.
But yeah, in all 3 years that I did the showcase, I don't think I was ever in a group with you.
At least we were in the same generation of songwriters.
Well, it just meant that I got to see you perform on stage, which is fine. It was cool. But I want to talk about your songwriting process. You were selected 3 years, I think. Were you selected as a songwriter every year you did it?
Yeah, for the 4 years, the extra year that I had on top of you.
I want to know your process. I want to know how you write a song.
So do I, because I feel like it's really unconventional.
Well, okay. So what do you do? Do you just decide, hey, I want to write a song, and then you sit down and then you just force it out? Or
I think it's actually just, like, if I could be honest, it's probably changed a lot over the years, because when I first started getting into music, I was just looking to write something, kind of just like the premise of the show. Like, it doesn't have to be good. It just has to exist and just has to be something. And so when I first started writing music, it was crap. It was like Jonas Brothers summertime pop music, and it was like there's like maybe a little catchy riff here and there, but there was no depth to the music. There was no There's no depth to the lyrics. There was like your standard 1, 4, 5. It was just basic. And then, like I said, when I got into junior high and I started listening to these bands that were really speaking their minds, maybe that's not a good like way of putting it, but they were being very expressive and poetic with how they wrote their music.
It seemed
and I was just
that
like,
there was more thought in what they were saying and what they were singing.
yeah, it felt like they were just able to relate to you. And so then I was just like, oh, so this is like what good music can be. And so then I started getting into just being a little bit more thoughtful and melodic with what I wrote. And then eventually I wrote like a collection of songs. I released that as an album. But then following that, I feel like that's where my songwriting process started to change. And instead, I started just letting inspiration come to me, which I feel like a lot of songwriters can relate to. That's probably not different. But what I like to do is wait for a theme to kind of take the reins and then write the music for me. So I'm currently in the process of writing some music for a new album, but I'm not just sitting at the keyboard and like actively trying to think of a song to write, because that's just not where I come from. I'll wait for something inspirational. Maybe I'll hear a quote, or maybe I'll hear a new song on the radio, something that will just kind of ignite a little flame and then inspire me, and then that theme, I'll let it run through the rest of the song. And if it doesn't go in with the theme that I have for the rest of the project, I may put it off and like keep it on hold. But for the most part, I like to have a running theme through the music. That's how I'll end up getting my music written these days, where it's not necessarily because I started writing a melody on a piano, or I wrote a line of lyrics and then built it around that. I'm just kind of waiting for that inspiration to strike me, which it can leave me in a little bit of a dry spell, and sometimes it can be really spontaneous and happen really quickly.
I think that's the approach a lot of, I don't want to say amateur songwriters, but I think a lot of new songwriters look for, waiting for inspiration to strike. But it seems the difference is with you, once it strikes, you're like, okay, time to write this. And then you can just turn that inspiration into something. And I think that's the part that trips a lot of people up. So, tonight we're going to write a song in approximately 45 minutes. Hopefully under. We'll see what we can do. Mm-hmm. How do you feel about that challenge?
I don't know. I'm a little skeptical, because when I found out that that's kind of the formula for making this podcast happen, I was like, I haven't done that since I first started writing music. I usually don't sit down and just hash it out. I usually will let it just build up in my mind. I'll take mental notes, and then I'll be like, I'm ready to sit down and write this, but not just like, all right, we have 45 minutes, go.
Well, how are you feeling tonight creatively?
To be honest, to be very honest, I totally forgot that we were going to do this. And then you said, I'm going to call you in like 20 minutes. Is that okay? And I was like, oh yeah, totally. So I think it's safe to say that I wasn't in the creative mindset tonight, but I'm pumped.
Well, let's see. You say you start with inspiration. Has something inspired you lately? Is there something in your mind that maybe it's something small, or something maybe inconsequential that you feel like you'd be able to draw on?
I think so. I think just like how I mentioned just like the other minute, I kind of take these mental notes when I'm like just drawing inspiration, and I've been settling on just a couple of themes that I really want to write about and put music to lately. And so I think this is a good chance to actually take action on it and not put it off for another week or two. It'll give me the time to actually just put something into words or put something into music that I've been meaning to and haven't yet.
Well, tell me about it. What is it?
Well, a lot of the project I'm currently working on, and is actually one of the songs, or the song that I played at the last songwriter showcase that we were both at in